talk a little bit about why you were interested in this particular project.
Yeah, because there is such a silence, I think, because a lot of times people don't think that they can talk about this stuff, or that if they want to have these conversations that it says something about their faith, that they're not as Christian as they should be or whatever. And I think I know from the conversations I've had with my friends and, even in clinical work, and that people are crying out to know that they're not alone, that they're not weird, that they are perfectly normal to at least wrestle with these questions. So I think that there's a lot of value. I hope there's a lot of value in people hearing, so many more stories and going, oh, that's just like me. What do you know? And especially if in some ways it's maybe, folks who are a little further on in their journey than the people watching are, so that they are like, oh, okay, there's life. I can survive this. It gets better. Well, whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about some of the messages you got growing up, or the messages that were around you, and what were some of the effects?
So, in Northern Ireland, where I grew up, there would not be. You wouldn't talk about sex openly. When I came to do an MFT and we had to ask our parents all this stuff, my dad's retort was classic. He was like, oh, sex, we don't have that in our family, we don't do that. And it was like, yeah, that just epitomizes it. And I never felt like there was silence around sex, but the messages that I got around my body and what have you were always really good. They were always really positive. So it was at least for me, I remember one notable occasion I came out and I had some like long flowing skirt on. I was like 14 and I was like, like all hippie-ish, whatever, because I'd seen The Lost Boys and Star was really cool and she wore hippie clothes. And my dad's like, why don't you wear like a short skirt? You've got great legs. And I was like, okay, what? I'm sure there's not a lot of fathers that say that, but it wasn't about sexualizing me. It was just, you got a great body, be at home in it type of thing, I don't remember if I changed on that occasion, but it was still like, even at 14 or whatever, I'm like, whoa, that's different. I don't expect too many of my friends get that conversation that way around, probably that you're not going out in that. But yeah, so I didn't get a tremendous amount around sex per se from church and youth groups and that. We got the standard, don't do it till you're married, no sex outside marriage. And I remember in Bible class, which was a really cool place, it was really fun. But one of the days it was like, this girl wants to go on the pill. Should she go on the pill? Because if she does, is that not suggesting that she intends to have sex with her boyfriend? And those messages that we know from the research now are not necessarily helpful. So so that was kind of that. Yeah, it was that the implicit message was that you toe the party line. That you don't have sex outside marriage, and that you save it because it'll change you, and you give it away, and it's that blue paper, pink paper. You stick them together and then you try and take them apart, and oh, there's bits of blue on the pink and pink on the blue, and yeah.
So the pink paper, blue paper, I know that some people know what that is, but I think some people don't know what that is. Can you talk a little bit about what message that might have been sending when that was shared? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would have been like 18, 19 when I got that message. Which was kind of awkward because I'd already lost my virginity at that stage. Awkward, but so that was really great to be helped to feel like you really suck if you did. If I hadn't got that enough, and I was just coming back to the Lord at that point because I'd gone off done my thing. And I'd gone through a bad patch which had helped me to sort of walk away from faith, shall we say. And then I was coming back. And so I still had all this sort of like sexual guilt and mess and blah. And the message from this particular church that I was at was that you're you give something away of yourself, you lose something of yourself that you can never get back. And when they talk about sex, of course, they're talking about intercourse. They're not, there's that's it. The two terms are used synonymously. So, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was that wasn't helpful. It's like, really. So I think over time I've sort of gone, well, honestly, like, is God not big enough to help me sort this out? And I didn't get that from that message. I got the waggy finger and the wrath of God. I didn't get the forgiveness, or what, God maybe had a better purpose for you than what you've found so far.
Yeah.
So
talk a little bit about your journey coming to terms with your body and with your, you were already in terms with your body, but coming to terms with your sexuality is something that wasn't about being bad or not okay, not good enough, that process for you.
Yeah, I think one of the vulnerabilities for me sexually was that I really didn't like myself. So the idea of someone being able to love me was like, what the hell? So I think that I was vulnerable to transactional sex, essentially, because I didn't like myself. And I remember when I would have been in my mid-20s, and I really, really struggled when I moved back from Northern Ireland because the long-term relationship had broken down. I just started coming back to my faith. My business had turned out to be a nightmare. I'd sold my house, like la la la. All those little markers that I'd had of who I was, rightly or wrongly, had all gone. And I moved back to Northern Ireland, and I'm like, I hate me. I suck. What the heck? And I remember going to this, it was an Elim, I don't know, like a Pentecostal thing that this guy I fancied was at. And I remember this lady preacher talking and them introducing Jesus, lover of my soul. And I broke. I'm like, how dare you? And I got so angry with God. I was like, how dare you tell me you love my soul? If a man can't even love my body, how dare you? Like, and I just lost it. I absolutely lost it that night. I was a mess. Like, it was really attractive. And I was just like, how dare you? But it was this thing of like God going, yeah, you take that to the bank, And I just couldn't roll with that. And fast forward a little bit, I went through Bible college and la la la, and there was some good stuff there, and God was definitely, identity was kind of the word, that, we need to do a little work there on who you actually are, and when I came out here, the word I kind of felt I kept being hit with was this idea of being beloved. And it was, so I kind of feel like the last decade has been a journey of God going, no, you really need to get this. You are loved, you are lovable, in and of yourself as an individual, never mind in relationship with a human, because, I am the lover of your soul, and it's been a long journey, but I do feel like it's been God romancing me and teaching me and growing me and what have you. So I think part of the journey then was that I still had this huge amount of fear about giving in to relationship, because I would most likely become sexual. Because I'm sorry, but there's a reason that people have sex, and it's not just to make babies. Sex can be really fun and can feel really, really good, even if it's not with the right person, physiologically, never mind emotionally. So, there's part of me going, you're human, what's the chances if you get in a relationship and you're really attracted to someone that you're not gonna, at least want to shag their brains out, to put it bluntly. So for a solid decade, out of fear that I would slip, I didn't let anyone in. An entire decade where I held everybody at arm's length. And even at Bible college, when I had a rant one day about being told to cover up from my incredibly conservative top because it showed my shoulders or whatever, and I had this whole rant with a friend in worship team about how hypocritical this was and how ridiculous it was, blah blah blah. And I'm like, nobody's even come on to me, so it's not like I'm seducing everyone here. And he's like, well, it's not that people don't want to, it's that you're unobtainable. It's like, huh, interesting, okay, all right. So he was like, it's not that you're unattractive, more unobtainable. And it's like, oh, okay, right. So you're calling me out on my holding everybody at arm's length. So, and honestly, I was thinking about this earlier, and I think what changed for me was going, God, I can't do that anymore. I don't want to hold everybody at arm's length. I want to learn how to trust and let people in. And I need you to be, and I remember praying this, I was like, God, I need you to be big enough to deal with it, to be able to cope if I screw this up. Pardon the pun, but I was like, I need you to be big enough. I need you to be God, so that, even if I get it wrong and I don't keep where you would want me to keep, regardless of, what your community says, I need you to be God. And honestly, that's been just such an important part of my story in terms of, so it's less about the relationship with the human, really, like that's wonderful, that's beautiful and all the rest of it, but there's just such a track of the love and grace and romancing of God, the passion of God coming after me and going, no, you're going to get this, dang it, you're going to accept that I love you, that I died for you and you're actually worth dying for, like what the heck, So I feel like that, yeah, fair enough, sex is part of the mishmash, but I do feel like that's a large part of my story right there. So
can you talk about what your hopes would be for youth and young adults, instead of the sort of purity crap and stuff we've been giving? What would you hope for them? What would you hope that their message and stuff would be?
I would hope that they would get that Jesus loves them so much quicker than me. Like, be a quick study. Get that you are so beloved, you are so precious. Because I think if people get how precious they are, and that they matter in and of themselves, and that they're not, especially as women, that you're not just something to be lifted off a shelf. You're not just an object that God gave you a brain for a reason. One of the things that, I'm slightly off topic, but one of the things that like drives me crazy is the idea that, women, somehow are secondary, that you're just there to provide for him and cook for him and all the rest of it. And if you don't have a man, then you can go and have a career. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Women are going to stand before God and give an account of themselves for the gifts and talents he gave them just as much as any man. And whilst, for a lot of people, they get to stay home and they do a cracking job of being parents, and that's marvelous. Oh my goodness, that's a high calling. But it's not for everyone. It's not one size fits all. And so for especially girls to grow up going, you know what, you matter. Your opinions matter. You're not just there to make everybody else feel good and to emotionally manage situations. You are there to have a voice in those situations. You bring something to the table, and you are so beloved. You're so precious. And what do you want as well? You know what I mean? And I look at, family and that, and the kiddos that I'm around and go, well, how do I nurture you in that? I don't want to preach on you. I don't want to like prescribe, do this, don't do that, whatever. I want them to get how precious they are, and that's important, and that will flow through to who they let close emotionally as well as physically, and when that will happen. I want to be a safe space. I know you can't be that for everyone, but I wish every kiddo, every teenager growing up had a safe space that they could go, yeah, I'm dealing with this. What do you think? And have voices of wisdom that they can talk to honestly and openly, and safety without judgment. Because honestly, when you're struggling with all that stuff, judgment doesn't help. If you're struggling, you really don't need an extra dose of guilt heaped on top of you. So, yeah. I'm not sure if that adequately answers the question, but it's sort of the first thoughts.